Some call it Z, some call it Z. Either way, it's back. That's this week on Motoring 2003.
TSN's Motoring 2003 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
This was the scene a few years back at the Detroit Auto Show when Nissan unveiled its concept of what could be its fifth generation Z car. But you know, back then, most doubted the company would get the go-ahead to build it. I mean, Nissan was burdened with massive debt. But today, the sun is shining once again, and the only way to describe Nissan is hot, including its product, like the Altima and G35, just to name a couple. But this week, we're going to get our first peek at the return of the Nissan Hotrod. And this time out, they're calling it the 350Z.
It is in this room named Sports 70 that the Datsun 240Z sports design began 3 years ago.
We realized that the Z was really part of Nissan's DNA, and if we were going to be true to ourselves, we had to have a Z in our lineup. And so we just started thinking about it back in 1999. And what could we do? What would a new Z be like? How could we bring it into the marketplace? What would make sense? And the result is the car that we've got here today. We're very proud of this engine. V6, VQ35. It's been an award-winning engine. This is the latest iteration of it, the most powerful engine of this type that we've had, 287 horsepower. You can get either a 6-speed manual, which is a brand new design, or a 5-speed automatic. The suspension is all aluminum. It's very lightweight, but very responsive. It's a new design for us, a new multi-link design. So when you drive this car, it's nimble, but it's easy to drive at the same time.
To me, it feels like a GT car like the old 300ZX was. I don't really feel the same kind of nimbleness or agility as you did have with the original Z car. That being said, you know, the price is pretty attractive for the package, for the performance, definitely.
Torque comes on really low, like 1200 RPM, I think the book said, which is really important. It means you don't have to push it hard in the high RPMs to make it drive right.
You know, there was always something missing with Nissan. You didn't really know what they stood for. Mazda has the Miata. There are cars like that. And with Nissan, you got to wonder, you know, what kind of company is it? Making good cars, good sedans, but then again, just about everybody makes a good sedan nowadays. So I think that from an image standpoint, yes, it's an important car for them.
It's got a very long wheelbase, very short overhangs. The wheels are out at the corners. When you see this vehicle, it's clearly moving, even when it's standing still. It's kind of an old phrase, but we think it really applies to this vehicle. And it's got all the performance and all the high-tech goodies that people want, but it's a very easy car to drive. This is a car you could drive every day. There's lots of competition. BMW obviously has some very good cars. Honda S2000 is another vehicle that, you know, has a similar type of feel. Boxster, Porsche, you know, clearly a real sports car. And we looked at all those vehicles and we said, you know what, we think we can do better. One way we've done better is our price is very good at under $45,000. This vehicle is one tremendous value for someone who wants a sports car. It has more power than those other vehicles, and we think it's a better everyday car.
You remember the original Z?
Yeah.
You're not too old to drive in this one now, are you?
No, I'm not too old to drive in this one, and I wasn't too young to drive in the other one either. No, I remember all the Z cars, and I've really liked them from the first 240 through the 300, which was 1996, I think, was when the Z car disappeared from the scene. And I was really excited when they announced that they were going to build a Z.
it's going to be interesting to see how they do about, how they market the car and who actually buys it. Because even though they target these younger buyers, some of them, maybe the name doesn't have any resonance for them. They weren't around when the original car was introduced. As far as the affluent boomers are concerned, they'll have no problems with that because they buy just about everything right now.
For the car business, it's good to have those kind of vehicles in the lineup for people to see them. I think it keeps people enthusiastic about what car companies are capable of. And I'm very proud of the fact that Nissan has this icon and we could bring it back into the marketplace.
One thing I never figured out in high school, and I still haven't figured out, is why is it always cool to be stupid? Of course, in my case, I was 0 for 2. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
This week on Test Drive, we take a look at the Focus. Now, for you eagle-eyed viewers, you'll remember that we've already done the 3, 4 and 5-door Focuses already, at least in the last couple of years. But this is no ordinary Focus. It's down to some severe modification and 3 little letters, SVT. When Ford, in its infinite wisdom, decided to replace the Escort and Contour models with a single vehicle, it effectively killed affordable access to a serious performance car, the Contour SVT. The work done by Ford's Special Vehicle Team, or SVT, takes the ordinary and transforms it into the extraordinary. In short, everything between the front and rear bumpers sees some serious upgrading. Enough, in fact, that the finished item has little in common with its rather pedestrian roots. Of all of the mods that they've made to this new Focus, right under the hood here is where the most significant one takes place. Now, whilst this engine is based on the 2-litre Zetec engine that powers many other Focuses, this particular unit has been breathed on by SVT. The result, the horsepower rises from a rather mediocre 130 to a number that this car has always cried out for, and that's 170 horsepower. As well as a dramatic bump in horsepower, the SVT gets another 10 pounds-feet of torque, meaning 145. The extra oomph comes through significant change. A variable intake manifold is augmented with variable valve timing on the intake cam. This stretches the power out over a broader range. As the result, the SVT enjoys a smoother idle, better mid-range and stronger top end, something that has to be experienced to be fully appreciated. For example, the run from rest to 100 kilometers an hour drops from calendar-like to about 7.5 seconds. This is also the first North American Ford to feature a dual-mass flywheel. This feature further smooths out the operating characteristics of the engine. Gaining access to the back seat of this SVT, well, it's pretty much par for the course, meaning a bit awkward. However, once you get back here, there's a surprising amount of headroom, enough leg room, and there's enough room under the seat for your feet. However, there is somewhat of a drawback. Whilst it is commendable that you get a centre headrest for the rear seat rider, it does clutter the view through the rear view mirror. Now, given that the fact that this seat is uncomfortable, take my advice. Take it out, store it in the trunk, and that way you'll have a much better view through the rear view mirror. The ratios chosen for the 6-speed manual box also complement the engine. The first 4 gears are strung together to maximise acceleration, while the last 2 bring better highway cruising. Engine aside, the most significant upgrade is the suspension. With stiffer springs, firmer damping, larger anti-roll bars and 17-inch wheels, the Focus remains flat and unflustered even as you flirt with the ragged edge. Through the pylons it bobbed and weaved with little body roll, minimal understeer and a feeling more like a go-kart than a car. The best part is that the handling prowess comes with little sacrifice in comfort. It is indeed a job well done. Inside, the modifications to this SVT continue. First of all, you get a set of Boy Racer pedals and a really nice 6-speed manual that brings flick-of-the-wrist throws. You also get a nice set of bucket seats, leather trimmed at that bring lots of lateral support. The dials, well, they're nicely finished, and you also get 2 extra. One for oil pressure and one for oil temperature. Now, if you add another $2,700 to that lot, you also get a power moonroof, heated seats, traction control, and this really nice radio. Now, part of its performance is supplemented by the enormous 8-inch subwoofer in the trunk. From a safety perspective, the SVT holds its own. Along with traction control, it gets standard anti-lock and bigger brakes, the front rotors being a full 2 inches larger in diameter. This provides stronger stops that are more fade resistant. During the tests, we recorded an average stopping distance of 112 feet from 80k. Elsewhere, the Focus SVT gets dual front airbags as well as front seat-mounted side impact airbags. You know, the people at SVT have done a bang-up job with this new Focus. It's fun, it's fast, and it's got impeccable road manners. Indeed, it's everything that the ZX3 should have been and more. Perhaps the only hang-up? Well, ultimately, price might dissuade a few buyers.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns tire inflation recommendations. We've got a great email here from a viewer who asked the question, what tire pressure should you use? The one indicated on the sidewall of the tire or the one indicated on the sticker plate on the vehicle's door? By and large, what you want to use is that vehicle sticker attached to the door or the door jamb of the vehicle. There's a couple of notable exceptions, but that should be your rule of thumb. Use the inflation pressure on that sticker. On the sidewall of this particular tire, it says this tire can withstand a maximum inflation pressure of 44 psi. Now, this tire could be installed on many different vehicles as original equipment, and in some applications there may be a manufacturer who uses the same tire and wants 44 psi in this tire. In that case, it would be on that sticker. But on this vehicle, they call for 35 psi or 240 kilopascals of inflation pressure for all 4 tires. Now, the notable exceptions to these rules, if you remember Ford Explorers, for quite some years they had a problem with premature tire failure, and those vehicles called for, on their tire inflation sticker, 26 psi. That was later revised or bumped up to 30 psi when they had this tire failure problem, because underinflation was a major factor in those tire failures. That's a case where you want to deviate from the specs, and a tire dealer can advise you better on this. Another example would be a light truck, van, or pickup that's been upgraded on its tires. If it has a constant loaded condition, the tires may have been upgraded from the original tire to a light truck or extra load tire that calls for 41 or 50 psi of inflation pressure in some cases. Once again, a tire dealer can better advise you of the application that you're up against and the inflation pressure that's correct for your vehicle. That's your Midas tip of the week.
This is our 8th annual Z-Fest. We started in 1994. We had about 40 cars, and it was held at the Nissan headquarters. Obviously, it's like tripled in size.
They really love these cars. That's the bottom line. I think it's the mystique of the car. The first time I saw it, I was just totally falling in love with it. And I think that's most for a lot of the people that are here today. My favorite car is the 260, 240, the first series. So if you're looking at the original shape that came in back in '70, it's the first car that ever really turned my crank, so to speak.
When I was 16 in high school, I just fell in love with what was quoted in Road and Track at the time as the affordable man's Ferrari. And it was a high school dream. When I was 18, I could sign for my first loan, and I grabbed my first 240. And it's just kind of turned into a hobby, and restoration experience keeps me from spending all my money downtown, I guess. 74 260, it was the shortest production run of all the Z cars. You'll notice if you look in the category, tons of 280s, tons of 240s, and then we've got maybe 3 or 4 260s here.
This year is special for me because I've got a 73 240 over there, and you know, here it is 30 years later. We've got the 350. The Z lives again.
I have a 96 300 ZX twin turbo. I'll go up against this any day. I like the look and the style. It's definitely different. I'd like to see it turbocharged though, with a nice twin turbo on it, and then watch it really move.
You're a tall guy. Does it?
Yeah, but see, I have a very short torso, so I'm not a very good judge. Because some of the guys got very long torso. I'm more legs. If you have long legs, then it's okay. But if you have a long torso, then you might have a little problem with headroom. But the convertible come next year, so don't worry about it.
I know how to open it, but how do we close it back? Like here? No, or we just pull it. I see. And it jumps into space. Wow, it's beautiful.
So tell me what you think of this car.
Oh, I bought one. Does that tell you much? It's very nice actually. A little shorter than I thought it would have been, but it looks really short.
Will it become a classic?
I think so. I think just like the original 240, I think it's going to have a cult following, and it will be a classic. Give it another 25 years.
You know, a question we've been hearing a lot at this show, in fact, we hear it at every event we attend, is when will this particular episode of Motoring air? Well, what I tell everybody is check out our webpage at motoringtv.com. It will give you all the future program times as well as the content. All right, it's now time to head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Well, Brad, I'm sure those Z car owners are pretty particular about how they maintain their vehicles to get them to last as long as they have. But we've got some email this week, a couple of emails from viewers of ours who are also quite concerned in particular about how they maintain their cars. Specifically, what they're asking about is the type of water to mix with the coolant to put in the cooling system of their car. Should they use just tap water or should they use treated water when they're mixing their coolant? Well, my advice to them is if they live in an urban area where the water quality is known to be very good, there's no reason why they can't use tap water. However, if they live in an area where they've got hard water or high mineral content in their water, it would be well advised to use treated water. Now, I went to an auto parts store, and you can go to an auto parts store and pick up deionized water that's designed specifically to be used in automotive batteries and in cooling systems. And if you use it in your cooling system mixed with your coolant, it will reduce the amount of scale and corrosion that you get in that system. Now, of course, if you're in one of those areas with hard water or high mineral content, it's extremely advantageous to do this. Now, normally when you're buying coolant, for example, this DexCool coolant that's prescribed for GM cars, this is pure ethylene glycol, and you're going to mix this at least 50-50 with water, if it's of known good quality, or deionized water that I just mentioned here. Now, you can mix it as strong as 70% glycol, 30% water, depending on how high you want the boiling point and the freeze protection in your cooling system. There's one other alternative. You'll find in some auto parts stores you can buy pre-mixed coolant. This particular one I picked up off the shelf is 60% ethylene glycol, 40% deionized water. Now, it's a little bit expensive. That's $5 for that container, so you're paying quite a bit for that little bit of water and the convenience of having it already pre-mixed. If I were you, I'd buy glycol antifreeze, ethylene glycol in larger quantities, buy the deionized water and cut it or mix it yourself, 60 or 70% ethylene glycol and the balance deionized water. That's going to do the best job for you. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2003.
It looks just like the turbo from the front, the aggressive wide body and the enlarged air intakes. Looks very aggressive. It looks very much like a race car, if you will. So it resembles the turbo from the front.
Thanks to Jeff Forey of Camrose, Alberta for twigging me onto this one. Jeff emailed the other day, said he was driving behind a Dodge Ram pickup truck that had the taillights covered up with these lens covers with the little symbol of the Dodge Ram thing on it. I guess the driver wanted everybody to know he was a rough, tough Ram truck driving kind of guy. But Jeff pointed out that at least half the illumination of the taillights was eliminated by these things. It's the same with the kids who get the adhesive tape out and cover up half of the lens. Why would you want to do something like that? Now, I've gone on about lighting on this show a lot over the years because visibility is important. Turn your headlights on all the time, day and night. Shoot your fog lights out with a shotgun because they don't do any good. They just irritate other drivers. And then, of course, some kids put these neon lights under the car. Now, a lot of the stuff is illegal. These taillight lens covers clearly are illegal to use. They obviously aren't illegal to buy or to sell because people do it. I guess the cops figure when we get all the drunks off the road, we'll worry about taillight lenses. Now, a teenage friend of mine, he's got purple illuminated windshield washer nozzles on his hood. Who comes up with this stuff? Now, he did get roasted by the cops because it is illegal, at least in Ontario, to have any light showing to the front of the vehicle that's not white or amber. Purple is illegal. He still has them anyway. But you know, I love the fact that kids love their cars. Now, they spend thousands of dollars personalizing them, which means making them look just like their friends' cars. They spend thousands of dollars on security systems to protect them, warning this vehicle protected by the wolf. And then they cover up the taillight lenses so that old guys like me with fading eyesight are more likely to run into them. Jeff, I guess you and I must have missed the same meeting. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, I got to get this 350Z back to Nissan, but it looks like I might have a tough time getting back behind the wheel. Some first impressions after just a couple of days with this vehicle, at least from a performance point of view, they've nailed it. Unlike, let's say, the Honda S2000 and even one of my favorite Z cars, the 300ZX, you don't have to drive this car on the edge to enjoy it. It's comfortable at every speed. One thing is for sure, Nissan will probably sell every one they can build, and just as important maybe is the fact that they're hoping this car will draw more people into the Nissan showroom. Graham, of course, will have a much closer look on a future test drive. Until then, that's it for now. We'll see you next time out for more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Our latest J.D. Power's appeal survey really shows that Discovery is trailing really amongst the competition with regard to the general performance of the vehicle, its acceleration, the sound at idle, and the general refinement of the engine. We made about 368 significant changes on the vehicle.
TSN's Motoring 2003 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. Oils fine-tuned for different engines. And Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.